Everybody ready? Tracking? All right.
Sir Class, Cadet Burris, Cadet Milton, and Cadet Lee briefing our Statapult project.
So what we were doing in this Statapult project is we were doing a skinning experiment, determining what factors impact the Statapult's accuracy in order to gain a funding for future experiments. So as you can see in this photo, just like a little diagram of what a Statapult looks like. We have the hook position, stop angle pin, and a tension pin, and then you'll also use a number of rubber bands.
So the fishbone diagram basically just got the uncontrollable, controllable, nuisance factors, and held constant factors. For uncontrollable, we had HS quality of the Statapult. We were just given a Statapult. Area for experiment, we were just assigned a room, couldn't really control it, and as well as the number of outlets in the room. It's whatever the environment that you're in. For nuisance factors or blocking, I highlighted Statapult because that's what we were blocking for. However, we used different balls, which could also be considered a nuisance factor. Controllable design factors, number of rubber bands, hook position, and stop pin angle. They could all be manipulated and controlled. Held constant factors, the measuring tape start position, we held it in the same place each time. The shooter was the same, as well as the recording method.
So our randomization and blocking, we used a random sample from R to do this. We ended up confounding ABCD with the Statapult, and then we had an issue here because I made a mistake and I included the negative, like the low factor of everything in the block, so we weren't able to collect every replicate 3 times. So we blocked on Statapult for our first 24 shots. We used Statapult 1, and our second we used Statapult 2, or on the last.
Yes, on our last.
So for our experimental design, we have 4 factors, and each factor has 2 levels of low and high level. So our first factor is a hook position represented by factor A, and has a low level of 4 and a high level of 5. Our second factor is stop and angle, which is represented by factor B, and it has a low of 1 and a high of 3. And we have the tension pin represented by C, which is levels of 2 and 4, and a number of rubber bands, which is represented by D, and it has 1 and 2. And these are all the factors we're using for our Statapult experiment. So for our treatment combinations, we have these 16 combinations right here, and then up top you can see the factors that we're going to be using. Since we were replicating these 3 times, we'll be doing 48 total trials. It's all 16 of these treatment combinations 3 times, basically.
So the data collection process, very simple. We had one person that shot the whole time, we had one person that recorded the whole time, and we had one person that gauged where the ball landed. This leaves room for some kind of human error since we had 3 people. It was just kind of like ball shot here, ball shot here. But overall, the process remained the same, and it was very efficient. So this is our data collection table. In our data collection table, we had one outlier. It was a huge outlier. It was something like 100 inches difference. So we don't know where that went wrong. We don't know whether it was in recording, whether it was in the person that was looking at where it landed, or whether it was the person shooting. Maybe they shot differently. We're not sure how.
So our models, this is our, it says unblocked, but this is our, like,
it's just our model.
Our model. This is the one that includes the outlier, and then the blocked models are the fractional models, excuse me. And then we isolated it by block. So basically, we took all of the high ABCD and then all of the low ABCD to look and see if there was like a significant difference in what the models were. And then here's our model, same thing, but this is without the outlier that we discovered.
Okay, so the final model. This is what we got as our final model. We did a linear regression model. Basically, we found that the stop pin angle, the tension pin, and then the interaction between stop pin angle and tension pin and then the interaction between the stop pin angle and the number of rubber bands were significant through ANOVA testing. So our R-squared value was 0.9141, and our p-value was relatively low. So we can conclude from this that it was a good model. However, when we did our assumptions later, we found something a little bit different. Also with B, because we were not able to collect 3 whole replicates of that, there may be some, I guess, wavering on whether how effective B actually was, because we only got 1 replicate and we had to estimate for the other 2 replicates. So this is the interaction plot. So you can see that B and D definitely interact, clear interaction. However, B and C, they're not completely parallel, so they could possibly have some type of interaction. However, from this graph, it does not appear that they have a significant interaction. So our assumptions, this is where we should have done this at the very beginning. So our assumptions, looking at the graph, it looks like they're independent and it looks like they're normal. However, whenever we ran the Shapiro-Wilk test, it gave us a low p-value, which means that we should reject the null hypothesis that they are in fact normal, which means that we have to choose a different model if we want to correctly, gauge where the ball is going to be, which is a difficulty we will figure out later.
So error and analysis, kind of looking at what could have gone wrong. As I said before, when we took our random sample to decide which order we're going to collect in, I included 1 extra treatment combination, so we weren't able to collect 3 replicates for B or ABC. Because of this, we had to estimate. Also, on our first Statapult, what could account for some of the variability is our cup wasn't screwed all the way in, which we should have checked before, so that could account for some of our error and maybe the reason why our data wasn't normal like we expected.
Things that we would do differently in this project, something that was noticed amongst I think most teams was we should have taken more data points than that actually were required. We finished about 20 minutes early and we could have easily taken 50, 55 data points, and I feel like that might have been able to help us with a lot of our error and give us some more room to play with our model and really perfect it. So I think in the future that would be something that we would do, especially if we have more time. The other thing would be checking our equipment before we use it. We knew that we were changing Statapults. We should have made sure that everything was stable on the Statapult, especially if we want to try and get the most accurate answers, as well as I think our process in the future, we would try and be a lot more precise in the data recording, in the shooting, same process every single time, as well as the person judging where the ball lands. I just think in general, that would improve the project as a whole. Class, this concludes our project presentation.